When you think about learning in general and the different things we learn, the different ways we learn, one of the obvious forces that's surfacing in big numbers at this conference is computer-mediated learning. And I want you to think for a second that computers are like all the other tools we use in classrooms and in schooling, like music instruments, like soccer balls, like chemistry sets, like blackboards, textbooks, all that stuff that is the media of education and of schooling. Before one starts to even think about criticizing whether or not computers have lived up to their promise, you have to ask the question, independent of all of that, how are the schools doing? How are the processes doing? Because everything else is just gravy. I was speaking with Alan Kay not too long ago, and we talked about the fact that you could drop a piano into a school without anything else, and you get a sort of chopsticks culture. People would begin tapping on the keys and making sound. But it's a reminder that the music is not in the piano. The music is something that transcends it. And I would submit that to some extent the same is true in the digital world, but there are some profound exceptions, and I know those are going to surface in some of the talks later in this session. Computers do contain a lot of music. They contain, these days, every piece of music you could think of. And they do a lot more. They simulate their bicycles for the mind, their jets for the imagination. There are profound differences, and yet I think part of what this conference does is remind us of the fact that perhaps the most valuable things we learn are things we learn from one another, not necessarily things we pick up from playing with a tool.